$350 or something. That's not bad.
No, that's a great
Oh, and we're
deal.
live.
Yeah, we're being sponsored tonight by LG TV, where you can get them at Best Buy.
Open box, baby.
Actually, we're not being sponsored by them, but that is a really good deal. Kevin was mentioning to me off air about, Christmas presents and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Some of the great deals that you can find on Black Friday, Cyber Monday, but even after those days, you go in the store.
Yeah.
And what happens is those Black Friday deals, those Cyber Monday deals don't work out. People return them to the store. It's been opened.
Yeah.
That's where you find a good deal. So keep your eyes peeled when you're going into the store.
I like the Geek Squad certified ones at Best Buy. That's how I bought my 70-inch in the basement.
You have a 70 inches?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
My wife told me size didn't matter when I bought a TV.
It's the motion of the pixels?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's true. They make something better than 4K now, which is funny because your eyes can't even perceive true 4K.
Wait, what?
Yeah. I read that in a media source.
Interesting. Live streaming on YouTube, it streams in 4K.
Dope. I'm glad it's only in 4K, because if it were in 5K, people would see the true me.
I see your true colors, and that's why I love you.
And I love you too. That's the second time we've said that to each other. This is good. This is gonna be a good day.
It's gonna be a good day. Yeah, we got a lot to talk about. We got some viewer requests for conversation tonight, and that always excites me, because while I always like bringing in content or having you bring up some ideas for content,
Mm-hmm.
I think when the viewers are involved in the content creation, it makes them feel like this really is a community, and that's what we want.
It is. So welcome to the community. I think yours are more natural. I have to force my wink.
I think you think it's natural because it's such an unnatural thing to do, but
Your winks are great. Oh my gosh.
it actually comes from a guy that we lived with, Leaves. He's actually a listener on the podcast.
Hello, Leaves.
Yeah. And he used to do this crazy wink. He would be like, as a joke, that's how he was basically calling you an idiot.
Oh.
He'd be like, oh, okay. And so we used to do that. And then when I was trying to teach Nora the Leaves wink,
Mm-hmm.
it just became a thing where I was just teaching her how to wink first. Hey,
Yeah.
Start
with the basics.
And then I just started doing that more often. But I saved my winks for my wife, my daughter, you, and the MadLibs community.
Boom.
All right.
Sounds like you're kind of a whore with your winks. It's a lot of people.
I mean,
I'm
I'm not winking at all of Russia.
That's good.
Yeah. I don't even wink at all of America yet. When
Yeah.
they're all a part of the MadLibs community.
You are winking at someone in Germany, Finland.
Oh, Germany. Yeah, Angie.
Is it Angie? We know who it is?
I know. Yeah, Angie. Yeah.
Hi, Angie.
Yeah, we met on playing Apex. So
That's dope.
yeah, it's really cool. She listened in.
I think Switzerland too.
That I'm not 100% sure on. I think my grandparents, my great-grandparents on my dad's side were on the Swiss-German border.
Okay.
But I don't think they know of me. So
We do actually have a listener in Russia.
really,
Yeah, that's true. Because I remember I sent you over those pictures of the Wrapped, but from from our analytics standpoint.
yeah.
Which I thought was really cool that I could do that. Because it reminded me of the days of Buzzsprout where it would give me every detailed thing.
Yeah.
And it would say oh, you had a listener here. Here's how long they listened for. Whereas Anchor doesn't do that. Anchor, get on your game, beach. Actually, Anchor's great. It's super user friendly and it's free.
Yeah, because they want people to use Spotify more.
Yeah,
But
works.
it still uploads to Apple.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely, absolutely. But the analytics are a little bit.
Not as in depth.
Yeah. Exactly. But yeah, we do have a listener in Russia. Speaking of which, I came up with a new custom dish for the restaurant. It's a secret menu item.
Oh, baby.
If you ever go to Blue Route in West Indy, ask for the Vladimir Poutine. It's our regular poutine with Russian dressing. I was really proud of that one. Nobody at the restaurant thought it was funny.
Is it good though?
I've never actually tried it. I just came
my
up with
God.
the joke. I don't know. I don't even know if I know what Russian dressing tastes like.
Oh,
Probably like dictatorship.
emphasis on the tater.
Yeah.
Not enough dick taste. I think it'd sell a lot better.
Without the dick taste?
No, with some more dick taste.
You mean you have 500,000 of these energy drinks? Oh, man, I got to try this. Oh, what is that flavor? Coconut penis.
It would have been a hit had they not had the coconut.
You made an entire energy drink brand dedicated to gay people? That is like one of I feel like that's an underrated scene.
There are underrated office moments throughout
God,
the
it's
entire
good.
show. But I think the earlier years,
Mm-hmm.
there was just so much more hype around it. Like like some of the later years where the show itself kind of fell off a little bit, and
For a
then it
little
got
bit, yeah.
then it got its steam back.
When
definitely
Andy,
last
I feel
season.
like when Andy took over as regional manager again and got past the whole Aaron thing, like it gets good.
Yeah.
again.
Well, and then the last season is, for me, the whole season is phenomenal.
It's great.
Yeah. But with that particular moment, and then
Yeah.
there's all kinds of other moments, like when Daryl leaves and stuff like that. Like,
Yeah.
there's just lots of underrated moments.
Yeah, I agree.
That kind of fall by the wayside, but hopefully people continue to talk about
Yeah.
in a random podcast moment.
Yeah. God, you want to get doing it? You want to get doing this?
Yeah, I was thinking,
Yeah.
one of these days. Wait, hold on. I also let's say for the 19th.
Okay. Now, careful, because I'm due to have a baby sometime soon.
Okay, well, here's what I was thinking.
Tell me.
Shit. When is the baby due? When's
17.
the baby due?
17.
Oh shit. Well, you know what? Why don't we? Well, next Sunday you have an event. I don't know if I'll be able to work that,
That's okay.
but maybe that's perfect. Next Sunday we play Super Mario on stream.
That'll
that'll
be
be the stream.
I would love that.
We'll do that as the stream. We won't have a traditional podcast. We'll just have a live stream.
Should I buy a new TV for us too?
No, not for us. We have multiple. Can you hook this up to like a normal TV? Probably.
This? Yeah.
I mean, it's not like a new TV, so you probably have to have like a cable. But I could probably use the HDMI cable from that, plug it in here.
Yeah. Well, I'll have to play with it, and I'll play with it at the house because I have that mini Super
Yeah.
Nintendo that we're gonna use,
Yeah.
and so I will.
Because you'd plug.
I'll practice.
Yeah.
It makes
That'll be
perfect.
interesting. Yeah, so we'll do that next Sunday.
Yeah.
And then the 19th, we won't have a podcast. We probably won't have a podcast till after Christmas. So the 29th. So we'll be on hiatus from the 15th to the 29th.
That's probably not true.
Well, we should be.
Yeah.
We should be. If you're like, hey, I got an itch. I got a podcast.
Oh,
I
it's
mean, let me know.
constant.
But like, you're an incredible dad, so you're not gonna be like, you're gonna be very focused. Anna's gonna be
Yeah, no, I've got to do dad stuff.
and I don't want there to be any pressure. So like, the 15th to the 29th, we'll do like one last, maybe like a 2020 wrap up.
I don't even remember what it's like to not be doing a podcast twice a week.
I know it'll be interesting.
Sorry, I'm doing posts saying that we are. Oh God, that's a funny video. I'll show that to you later. I made Ben a Batman. He wanted Batman armor.
Great video game, by the way.
Batman?
Been playing Arkham Knight.
You were telling me that the other day.
Yeah.
Yesterday.
Yeah. Because I had to describe the maniacal laugh. That wasn't the Joker's.
That's funny as fuck.
So I was playing Arkham Knight. And it's a really good game. I played the other ones. Arkham City. I think Arkham, I don't know. Arkham Knight's really good though.
Arkham.
Arkham Asylum. It starts in the Asylum, then does Arkham City, and I played both of those, and then I'm playing Arkham Knight. Arkham Origins. How many damn video games are there?
A lot.
Did I play this one? 2013. Which one was Arkham Knight? This one has to be the most recent because there's, 2015.
I like how I accidentally, in the post, I forgot there's a bottle of whiskey sitting off set there.
Oh.
So it's like, what's that brown tube? All right, I posted on things. Maybe we'll get some viewers up in this bitch.
Well, that's all right.
Yeah, I don't care either way.
Yeah, we got
people are watching it afterwards.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we're getting like anywhere from like 4 to like 20 views.
Yeah, I definitely want to like thank some people that liked and posted on when you posted you sent that thing to me and then I posted on Facebook. We got a lot of reactions and stuff like that, which was exciting, and just the post itself was exciting to make because it I don't know about you, like I don't necessarily like I always want to do this,
yeah,
but like sometimes I'm like, are we actually like making progress? Like are we actually building, like we say we're building a community and stuff, but do you ever have those moments where you're like, I'm not really that sure?
I think I've had those moments where I'm like, man, maybe we're not like gaining as much steam as fast as I thought we were going to.
Exactly.
But then immediately after I have that thought, I say, I don't give a fuck. Like I care. I want people to listen. I want to be able to hopefully help people understand and get excited about politics. Oh, Anna wants to hire you to be Santa. Sorry, I just saw those pictures.
Oh.
But then but like I enjoy doing this so much with you that like I'm never gonna stop doing it. But that like Brian pulled up the statistics right now. So so we had 51 people that are our listeners that listen to us more than any other podcast, which like I mean I think that's
really cool. That's not even just top 5. Like more than any. We were number 1 and 51 people.
Yeah.
And now I will say my wife doesn't listen to any other podcasts on Spotify. So like, that might boost it a little bit.
Yeah.
But in general, still 51 people every week listen to us more than any other podcast.
Which is awesome.
Really
and
cool.
Also, so like the cool thing about this is like, so this is just Anchor statistics. So we're up 82% for listeners this year because we switched to Anchor January 4.
Someone literally just messaged.
Oh, no way.
You'll have to respond to that.
I do?
I guess it's Instagram. I can through Instagram.
Yeah.
Because I hooked up our Facebook page.
That? I don't know who that is. I think that's one of those people that just like, you know what I mean? Like likes you, like for like, which I'm okay with.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, but
yeah, so like we're up.
82%.
Yeah, the 82%. We're up 82% this year. For followers, we're up 72%. I mean, that's great. For hours,
I was also really proud of the hours. That's like just us working.
Yeah, streams were up 58% too.
Yeah,
I mean, I think that's great. I that like when I saw that, I got proud. I was like, all right, maybe we are doing this.
Yeah.
Thanks for responding to that.
Yeah, no problem.
All right, let's go live.
Cool.
That is exciting news. We should share that on the podcast too. Oh, did you hear my tum-tum?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I'm getting blown up on the Instagram.
It's the same one.
Can you drop a channel link? I like it. This is going to be episode 139.
The MadLibs answers.
Yeah.
Cool.
Dig it. All right, let's do this. Let's bump this funky jam. Kids say that now, right?
Yeah. I don't know, actually.
Me neither. Let's do it.
Let's break out. Come on, let's break out.
we are live.
We're live.
It's happening.
Always.
And forever.
And on YouTube.
And with Brian. Nice.
I was going to say, like, and with Kevin, I was like, no, I'm going to throw him off. I'm just going to pause.
Nah, there's no throwing me off,
feel
kid.
it. Let him feel the silence.
Joke's on you, I feel nothing.
This is the sound of silence.
Yeah. Who originally did that song?
Simon & Garfunkel.
It is what it is, yeah.
But Disturbed's cover is probably
Oh,
not.
my God.
Yeah.
It is fantastic.
I'll never forget when my mom texted me, like, hey, you got to hear this cover. And like, I had heard it, but like,
Yeah.
I was just excited. My mom
Yeah.
was like, because obviously my mom does not listen to Disturbed. And she actually like said like, oh,
Yeah.
they're pretty good otherwise, but they're not really my thing.
Right.
But that particular cover was just
Oh,
insane.
I would say that's up there. Like, it's easily top 10 covers of all time.
Oh my goodness. We might have to do a podcast on cover songs because I don't know too many off the top that are better, but like,
And
I'm worried about saying that.
Right. Well, and you cannot mix up covers with samples either, because there's a lot of songs that were
no,
sampled.
Samples, no.
Because that would be even harder. There's so many songs out there that you don't even know.
I think the
are
most
sampled.
recent ones that I've gotten into. So actually, there was Matt Nathanson is one of my favorite artists.
Okay.
Come On Get Higher is like his most noteworthy song. Run. But anyways,
Is that song that's like run? Dun, 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 dun,
Oh
dun,
no,
dun.
that's AWOL Nation.
Oh, is it really?
It's the one that he sings with Jennifer Nettles of some country band, Lady Antebellum.
Lady Antebellum. That's a
No.
band.
Or now they're just
Are they just Antebellum now?
no.
They're gender neutral.
No, they're like Lady A instead of Antebellum because Antebellum is like relating to the slavery South.
Oh.
So they're Lady A, I believe, but it's not them. It's a different one.
Interesting.
Little Big Town or something. I don't know.
That's a band.
Yeah, I don't remember. But anyways,
You just keep saying bands, and I'll
I know,
confirm or
man.
deny that it's a band. Welcome to the podcast.
Yeah,
Today's
so-
subject matter
so
is
Matt Nathanson recently released Octone Baby. So
okay.
he did Octone Baby. He covered the whole album by U2. It was
Okay,
the 30th
yeah.
anniversary. She Moves in Mysterious Ways. Some of those like really
Right.
just greatest hits of U2. And he covered that, and the whole album was just awesome. But I love his voice and sound, and like you can feel character in some people's voice.
Yeah.
Like not even necessarily like the way their voice sounds, but like you can just like I've seen him perform live, and he
Yeah.
always moves in a certain way, and it's like, man, I love the way he performs and everything. And I can hear
Certainly.
it. And then the other one was Bad Wolves, Zombie. So Zombie by the Cranberries was
Yeah.
covered by Bad Wolves, and they were supposed to record it with the lead singer right before she died.
Yeah, that's
And
sad.
then she passed away, and it just like took on this whole new feel because
Yeah.
it resonated so well.
Yeah, one thing that I really enjoy too is like, and you don't hear it in all of Disturbed's music. I don't listen to a lot of Disturbed's music, but like you'll notice like that he's got like quite a soulfulness to his voice that you didn't maybe notice until he did that song.
Right.
I love a good soulful voice.
Yeah. It kind of reminds me. I think he has a little bit smoother of a voice.
Certainly.
Whereas Aaron Lewis has a very granular voice, but they just have a very similar like emotion evoking voice.
Yeah.
Like you just feel, and there are plenty of artists that do this, but you just feel
Yeah.
a certain sense of like pain or whatever, and it's like I don't know how
Yeah.
to describe it, but you feel it, and therefore you're more vulnerable to the song itself.
Yeah. Dustin Kentrue. I'll send you some of his
Yeah,
music.
I don't know him.
He's from a band called Thrice, and actually,
I know Thrice.
Yeah, so Thrice, as they went on later in the years, they became much more mellow, and like they've always been
that's
musically
cool.
talented. But yeah, they have I believe it's not the Alchemy Index, but it's the albums that came out shortly thereafter. It was like a 2-part album or a 2-disc album.
Yeah.
And that's when like Tepe, the guitar player, got into piano, taught himself how to play piano,
That's crazy.
and yeah, their music is great. I was listening to that today actually.
I'm fascinated by people that like teach themselves how to play an instrument and then go and become like one of the greatest to do it kind of deal. And I know that kind of happens with a lot of rock bands.
Yeah.
But it still just is a marvel to me that people just say, "Hey, I'm gonna learn the guitar," and like go do it.
Do you think that part of that is like when you don't know what you can and cannot do with an instrument, you're less limited? Have you ever heard that?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you're not self-imposing a limitation.
Like, you think somebody probably told Tony Hawk that he couldn't do the 900, and he didn't listen to that rule?
He recently did it.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's
He did that thing where he
It was like the last time he was ever even gonna attempt it. He's like, "This is it," and he did it, and he went down to his knees and just was like you could just feel it. And I was like, "Oh man."
Hello to our one viewer, by the way.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, make sure you say something in chat. I'm really excited because
speaking of viewers,
or listeners in particular.
Yeah.
The thing you were talking about earlier with the podcasting numbers is I posted that on Facebook, and it really kind of drew some more attention. Jeannie, Sue, Heidi. Heidi.
I know Heidi.
Lena, Deb, who we'll talk about shortly. Jason, of course. Noelle, my wife. Judy, Lucia, Tiffany, and Bernadette. All, congratulating us on the growth of the podcast. And obviously, people are invested in us because I think the community is important. The podcast is important. But, we're really trying to do something good. And hopefully, even people that aren't necessarily listeners every time, they do care. And I think that's important to acknowledge. So, thank you for liking that post, giving it, a little more traction, a little more people saw. I think, a lot of interaction there. And that's exciting. And it led us to some topics tonight.
It sure did.
You and I didn't have to come up with the content, which is also like one of my favorite things. Fun. Because, A, it's just a little less work for us. But also, B, it really shows that like you are a part of this conversation too. Yeah. And by you, I mean not Kevin or myself. No. I mean you, the one listening right now. You are a part of this conversation, this community, this podcast. So when you bring up topics, you're part of this whole thing too. And that makes me more excited than anything.
Me too.
So tonight we had Uncle Jim, and Deb bring up two topics that we're going to be talking about tonight.
Yeah, they're good topics too, and I feel like we touch on both of these topics in a roundabout way in several of the episodes that we have put out there on the Spotify verse. But now we get to go in depth. Now we get to really talk about it. What do you think, Brian? Without any further ado, let's get into it. Uncle Jim requested that we talk about media bias. Mm-hmm. And I have to say, I feel like I really learned something while I was researching this. Like, obviously, we both knew that there's bias in media. Yes. What was surprising to me was that I found out that sometimes there's more bias than I think, but also sometimes there's less. Yeah. So,
and that's something like I think is really important when we talk about mainstream media, because the problem is with mainstream media, it's like saying all humans do something, right? It's like all media that has a notable following is the same, and that's just not the case. Whether you're talking about print versus TV versus even within TV, is it local news? Is it cable news networks? Which cable news network? Like so.
Is it national? Is like a national news network?
Is it international? Like BBC is international, so it's got so all of these things are really, really important to distinguish when talking about mainstream media. And I think that's something that I always try and harp on with when people go, mainstream media sucks. Okay, what specifically and why? And I think that's a really important thing to have in those conversations.
In what sense?
In what sense? Yeah. It's so fucking true. I think when we talk about media, there is an idea of sensationalism that happens a lot on cable news networks and stuff like that, whether it's CNN, Fox News, MSNBC. If you go to certain, live streams of people, I've listened to like Hassan and David Pakman, similarly to Tim Pool, Ben Shapiro, Steven Crowder. There's all of these different people on the different spectrums, and like they're considered media, and they all have a certain sensational touch because they're driven by people, their audience participating in terms of listening, subscribing, donating, whatever. All of those things matter to them, so they have to keep people interested. And for me, I don't have a major issue. Now, you might differ on this, but I don't have a major issue with some sensationalism in the sense that it gets people to be more engaged. My problem is when people are being sensationalized with inaccurate information. I have a big issue. When it's sensationalism, like, oh, this is really important, you should know about it. Maybe it's not the most important thing, but if it gets people to be more attentive to the news, that's good too.
I think it's okay to sensationalize things. I think there's a certain degree to which you don't want to go over, because I think the more sensational you make the story, the bigger that story seems to people. And sometimes maybe perhaps what they're talking about isn't as big of a deal as everyone's kind of making it out to be. So that would be my only. Oh, it's so funny. I was going to talk about that tonight, Brian.
Oh, well, then I'll let you go.
No.
You go for it. You go for it.
No, go ahead. I'll play into it. You're fine.
Well, no,
I'm just glad that like when I did research, like you and I came up with the same stuff. It makes me feel smart.
Well, I didn't do this. This was me pulling it off the top of my head.
Oh, okay. Because like sometimes like like when you're in school and you look over at the guy next to his notes and he's the smart kid in class and you're the dumb kid in class and you're like, he wrote down the same thing.
Okay, A, I know that feeling. B, that is not the situation here. It's not the situation here.
But no, it's always good to not over sensationalize things.
Because we don't want to be yellow journalism.
Yeah. Do you know why that it was called yellow journalism? I know that, and you can actually see there's a hint right there.
Yeah, go ahead.
It was called yellow journalism. There was two major media giants, and this is old. This is print journalism. Mm-hmm. Which, fun fact, print journalism is still preferred by the rich and the elite.
It's preferred by me.
I do. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
The only I'm really just two things, like YouTube and print.
Yeah.
But like I don't watch a lot of Fox.
I don't watch a lot of TV news.
Yeah.
Even locally. I wish I watched a little more locally, which I'll get to.
Actually, I shouldn't say that. I really don't do a whole lot on YouTube. A lot of so when I'm listening to news, it's on
it's through YouTube, but it's PBS and NPR.
No. I mean, like I'll listen to podcasts, but a lot of the podcasters I listen to are also on YouTube.
Okay.
But yellow journalism. It was a big fight between two print media conglomerates. Who was it, Brian?
It says William Randolph Hearst.
Yeah, but what was his paper?
I don't know.
Yeah, it was William Randolph Hearst and somebody else. Brian pulls that up. They were basically trying to fight for the number one spot as far as like media goes. This is back in the day when like there was like an AM paper that would go out and a PM paper that would go out.
The New York World versus the New York Journal.
Thank you.
Joseph Pulitzer versus William Randolph Hearst.
And that is Pulitzer that the Pulitzer Prize was named after.
Mm-hmm.
But they were competing to basically have the most sought after paper. And the reason they wanted this is because they wanted to basically get more ad dollars. And it was a big thing on ad revenue. But they were also competing for a comic book called The Yellow Kid, or a comic strip called The Yellow Kid. Super popular little comic strip.
I love those comic strips.
Really? I've never seen them.
I haven't either.
Okay. I was like, you really do like your print media, Brian. Wow there, kid.
I still get the Sunday edition of the Tribune so I can read the comics.
Yeah, but anyways, it's a very interesting thing, and it plays nicely into the way that media is today. Everybody wants to be the first to cover something. And I feel like maybe yellow journalism is where that it's not the first to be true. It's the first to break the story.
Yeah.
That, kind of takes the cake. And that's why there's Denzel Washington has a really good quote on that.
Yeah.
As Denzel Washington
It was
does.
like on the red carpet. That
he was on the red carpet. Yeah. And they were like, what do you think about the news or the media? And like what he said was so insightful, and I'm not even going to try to quote it because it was too good, and I don't want to ruin it.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
What was your favorite Yellow Kid journal or comic book there, Brian?
It was the fourth week in May in about 1919.
Oh, yeah?
I don't fucking know.
That was a good one, though.
Can't remember if it was Tuesday or Wednesday. Not sure. Sorry.
Yeah.
We'll
duck go it later.
I think it's really important to acknowledge two things that you said.
Yeah.
Number one, the first to break it, and this is why I trend more towards print. Even digital print, which is relatively quick, is usually not as fast as TV has been throughout, the history of media, if you will. Mm-hmm. So I think that's something to be very cognizant of, is like digital print and those news publications that create print. So for me, New York Times, Washington Post, Wall Street Journal, The Economist, The Atlantic, all of these, print style media outlets really have a certain code of ethics that journalism was very respected.
Used to be, yeah.
And in my opinion, it still should be.
Yeah.
But because there's just so much drama surrounding media, and I do think, Donald Trump played a lot in that, like, fake news, when things might not have even been fake.
Yeah.
And so therefore there's a whole group of people that challenge the idea of media in a way that isn't in good faith. Whereas I think like people like your Uncle Jim are challenging the media in good faith and saying, hey, they need to be accountable, because there are notable, scenarios where people use certain wording. We'll talk a little bit about different biases and how it shows. Mm-hmm. And like even simple wording can show a bias or even make the reader more biased. And that's the issue. And that kind of thing isn't necessarily the biggest affront, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But I do think it's something to take note of, for sure.
Well, and before we get too far down this rabbit hole of media bias, one thing that I want to point out is that I think, so when I was starting to research a little bit for this, or when I was kind of, reading a couple of different articles, something that came up for me was media literacy. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And I thought that was just something that's super, super important. And that's kind of what I'm hoping that's what a lot of people are going to get out of this episode, is that you not only have to be careful of the actual source, but you have to be able to kind of wade your way through, what's the truth and what's the bullshit. Yeah. Or where does the spin come into play, or something along those lines. And I'll just take a second to quote my biggest hero in the coffee industry, and that's Don Berquist. He works for a big espresso machine company, and he said something to me one day that I will not forget, ever, because I was talking to him about, and I was new to the coffee industry. I was still learning a whole lot, and I don't remember the acronym that he used for me, but he said he liked me because I was whatever, and it was like teachable. I questioned things, whatever. And he said, in this industry, it's pretty much an 80-20 rule. When someone tells you something, 80% of it, you just need to let it go in one ear and out the other. The other 20% is actual important information. He said the struggle is finding out which is which.
Interesting.
And I just thought that was really cool, and I'm sure other people have said that before, but it's an approach that I take with a lot of things in my life now.
Yeah, and I think that's a important acknowledgement of, like, there's just a lot out there, and some things you just have to let go in one ear and out the other. There is a lot of really good information, and then sometimes it can be overwhelming, and that's something I would say is, like, yes, the news can be overwhelming, and I hope you always know. Yeah, I hope you always want to listen to this podcast, but like, I'll be honest, my wife has said, I just couldn't listen right now. Like, there's just too much going on.
Yeah.
And I get that. And that's what this is about. Like, I always want you to have the conversation, but sometimes for your own mental health and your own sanity, take a step back and, just, get in your own vibe. Go play some video games, go on a walk, whatever makes you happy. go do that instead of listening to the news. Now, in the big picture, yes, it's very important to stay on top of things, but it is definitely okay for you to take a step away.
I do every Sunday and every Wednesday night.
Step away from
politics. The news? No, I mean, that's like when we're done recording.
Oh, okay. I was like, well, you kind of do. Even after recording, there's like a 50% chance that I'm sending you a political TikTok.
That's true, but I always enjoy them. I didn't watch the one you sent me today.
I don't even think that was political.
Oh yeah, I didn't even, I was busy cleaning up after dinner. But
there were two. Yeah, there was one that was a Mario. It was the level Tubular that I was talking about in the last podcast.
Okay, yeah.
And then the other one was, you didn't even have to watch a TikTok. I just sent you the picture of me commenting on Papa John's. Because Papa John made a terrible TikTok of him like dancing with pizza, and it was that one where you're and you like do the hand gestures, and he was offbeat, and someone said, which is worse, his rhythm or the pizza? And most people were like, both. And I said, no, it's always the pizza. I want Papa John to know me and know that I hate his pizza.
Yeah. I wonder if we can pay money to have that comment go to the top of his feed so he sees it. And then he'll look up the MadLibs podcast, and then he'll hear our fury.
Hell hath no fury like a woman scorned, except the MadLibs podcast about Papa John's.
Yeah, take that.
But I think this is a really good conversation to have. It's not necessarily saying like your news outlet isn't good.
Right.
It's very important to be cognizant of its leans, its biases, and there's a difference between bias and accuracy. And that was something that was very important for me is, as I was reading through this, I don't like it like that. I like it like that. So
there is nobody out there who has a harder time with audio than me, and it's because I try to move Brian's pop filter, and he's like, no, I don't like it like that.
Well, why does it matter?
It's just the way that you were getting picked up. You're fine. I'll turn your volume down.
Like, I need it like this.
Okay, you're fine.
But now it's Anywho, it's better that I actually audio than not audio. Okay.
Agreed. Go on.
So, here, I'll slide my computer back. That doesn't help. Now I still can't see. Anyways.
It's
the
important
idea of
to know.
the idea of accuracy versus bias is also very important. Whereas, the New York Times might be left of center. It's not left. It's left of center. Wall Street Journal's right of center. Mm-hmm. But they're both extremely accurate in their
reporting.
Their reporting and their ethics. So that was another thing is like when you talk about digital print, or I'm sorry, not digital print, but like newspaper print. So those companies have a long time vested interest in being ethical. Like their journalistic standards have to be higher. They always had to because of libel, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
They can't post something or say something, not post, but they can't write something in the newspaper that is patently false, knowingly, printing something they know is false,
right.
Or they can be held liable for the libel, right? And they have to pay fines. They can lose, whatever. So those types of journalistic outlets have to have certain ethics and principles that guide them. Yeah. And I feel like, I don't necessarily go to Wall Street Journal. I'm more of a New York Times WAPO guy, but they have these backbones. BBC also very similar, so they have these backbones of like journalistic principle. Now, with that said, that doesn't mean they haven't had issues, right? But like when something big happens, I think the New York Times had one, and they fired the 3 journalists that were involved with, a mishandling of a story. Like it wasn't journalistically ethical, and so they fired those journalists. Like you're not allowed to breach those ethics. So that's something that's also really important to acknowledge. Is like there's always going to be a little bit of bias, unless it's like the Associated Press basically, positions it as who, what, where, when, why, and how. That's it. Like,
yeah.
And that's okay, but sometimes more context is needed to really understand it.
Yeah.
And as soon as you move past those things, you're going to have certain instances of bias, even in the wording of things.
Certainly.
So that's something that I was really drawn to. The idea, there's, a couple of sources that I was using, most notably the Ad Fontes, spectrum, as well as All Sides, which All Sides I thought was really cool. And they even talk about their methodology in determining bias. They do blind surveys with people. They do their own practices. They look for certain keywords, all of these things. Mm-hmm. And it listed out their actual methodology, which I thought was really incredible.
Yeah, there's actually quite a few on that list that I thought were somewhat surprising.
Okay. What caught you by surprise?
I mean, your normal ones like your Wall Street Journals, your CNNs, your NBCs, your Fox News, obviously OAN, the Young Turks, wasn't surprised there.
Oh, how far left it is?
Yeah. Or how far right some of those, Ben Shapiro.
Well, and the cool thing about the Ad Fontes, right?
That's what, yeah.
So that one, it's not only how far left or right. They do a really good job of breaking down up and down.
Correct.
And up is how accurate their information is,
yep.
and in its reliability as well.
Yeah. And there's a lot of people that are higher up too that I was, Fox News in their accuracy was actually pretty good.
Yeah.
Which is again, I'm not going to go out and watch, Fox News very regularly, but The Hill, that one dead center, mm-hmm. On their accuracy, they were a little bit, well, they're not low. They're still pretty high up there, but I was surprised at how dead center they were. But I think a lot of that is because of me listening to Crystal and Sagar. They both came from The Hill. Mm-hmm. And they don't outright say negative things about it, but they say that there are a lot of donor dollars that go into The Hill. And mm-hmm. so there are some things that they don't allow you to say, but I guess that doesn't really necessarily mean that they're not accurate, but perhaps they omit some things. PBS, shout out PBS. Everybody knows I love PBS. I thought that was really awesome that they were listed where they were too.
Yeah, I'm actually surprised. I guess I shouldn't be too surprised because, and this is something that you see a little bit more clear in mm-hmm. On the All Sides version of the spectrum.
Yeah.
Was the idea of, let's say Wall Street Journal and then Wall Street Journal opinion, New York Times opinion, and New York Times proper.
I agree.
It's very hard because this one is so many things on the Ad Fontes spectrum.
And actually, while you guys are listening to this too, I'll have we'll post this up on our Facebook page, the link to it. Not right this moment, Brian, but just before they
listen to it. So after we're done recording,
after the episode airs, we'll put it up on.
So they'll hear it, they'll see it as they hear it,
and they'll get to 28 minutes into the episode, and then they'll hear me say that it's on our Facebook page, and I'm like, oh my gosh, pause the episode for 1 second so I can listen to this with them.
Got it.
You like that?
Yeah.
We're planning things out now, baby.
Yeah.
Here's to another 84% increase in listeners. And actually what's funny about this too is they didn't put us on there. They were going to, but they couldn't fit it. Our accuracy was too high for their scale.
Yes.
And it was
100% agree. I was just looking at.
I wonder if this means too, Brian. Sorry to interrupt, but I wonder if this means too that incorporated in their accuracy is also when they have to retract a statement or when they have to print a interesting. Yeah. Okay.
And that's something that's also very interesting that you were talking about, the idea of the first to do it.
Yeah.
So now there is somewhat of a race with journalism that used to just be in print, mm-hmm. Still trying to rush because it's digitized and they can get something out faster.
Right.
So there is still some of that, but I think there's still a lot of backbone in the journalistic principles.
Yeah.
So they don't rush too fast, but when they do redact, right?
Right.
Or they acknowledge hey, this was wrong, or this was even spellings we spelled. There was something with the Rittenhouse trial is I think it was the guy that had been shot and testified against Rittenhouse. He was the prosecutorial witness that sucked.
Yeah.
His name was
he didn't
spelled
suck.
wrong.
He just wasn't good for the.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Nah, he kind of sucked. He was just oblivious. He was not well coached. You could see.
I think he didn't care.
His name was misspelled in an article on one of the major outlets, and like they have to like make an editor's note, like, oh, we fixed the article. Here's what we did.
Yeah.
And so I think that's really remarkable. Like you need to acknowledge your edits as well.
Can I accept or say something too? I think that like when they do a redaction or a retraction rather, I think that that's something that immediately, like the next day, like especially for print or even for like news on websites or whatever. I think that's something that should be first page the next day. Because I think that one issue that you run into is people will print retractions, but it's like by the time that retraction's out there, nobody's paying attention to it, and it's like one small little article, like 32 pages in.
Yeah, I mean, if it's a large scale retraction, like if it's a misspelling of a name, I like.
No. I'm talking about large scale. I'm not talking about like what teachers used to do and put 2 F's on my name instead of 1.
Did we put 2 F's on your name?
At the end of my last name.
Interesting.
Yeah. Anyways,
I thought it would be interesting. All sides did this really good breakdown of different types of media bias, which I think is also important to acknowledge.
Yeah.
And so, like, I just want to quickly go over the 12 and kind of provide some background information so you listening at home don't have to, like, do research on the different types of biases, and you can get a quick, 1 or 2 lines on each one and kind of get a better understanding. And the first one is spin. So this is like using particular words or phrases that might make the reader read the sentence a little bit differently than they should. And so, an example of this was, on allsides.com, you can actually find this breakdown. And the great thing about it is they give actual examples from actual news articles. And you can see, like, they get some from the Washington Post or Business Insider or Fox News. So they've really tried to find, examples from all these different sources, not just like, hey, look at what BBC does wrong every single time. Like, they really kind of focus on spreading the love of the critique. And so the example of spin would be, President Donald Trump gloated over mass layoffs at multiple news outlets on Saturday. And, gloat means to enjoy the misfortune of another. And so you can't really get inside the head of someone, so you don't know how they're feeling about something.
Yeah.
You can say he spoke to something or he said something regarding it.
Yeah.
And use a direct quote.
Yeah.
But you can't really say he gloated. So whether or not he did or didn't, it's just something that you don't know for sure. And so therefore it's technically spinning the story. Another thing is, like, number 2 that they brought up was unsubstantiated claims. So things that aren't necessarily real. This is actual fake news where we don't actually know if that's true or not, or sometimes we even do know it's not true, and they're trying to promote some sort of story and make something out of nothing. And the example they used here was the Daily Wire.
Yeah.
And they said Socialist Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez of New York continued her long-standing pattern of not understanding how things work. Like, obviously, that is very unsubstantiated. She knows how plenty of things work. She might not have known how something worked that you are referring to, but to say she doesn't know how, like, all of these, she has a pattern of not knowing how things work is, obviously some sort of unsubstantiated claim.
Yeah. It's interesting, too, because it also, underneath that, it has an example from The Hill, talking about when Kamala Harris condemned the violent attack on Jussie Smollett. So it's like, these are even things where people just, like, jump to conclusions initially and immediately think that the way that the story is being, shared now is exactly how it happened, whereas sometimes you just have to wait. And I've said this before. I think you've said this before. In podcasts, like, sometimes you have to, we both said this a ton of times.
Yeah.
We'll wait for, like, trials to end. We'll wait for certain things to finish before we start commenting on them, just because there's still so much that needs to come out before we can make it, an educated assessment.
Right. And so the proper way to have said that would have been to say alleged, right? Because there's no convictions.
Right, exactly.
They haven't done a full investigation where evidence is even pointing in one direction.
Yeah.
And I know Kamala Harris might have been condemning a violent attack in her words, but unless you're quoting her in that, you can't say that it was a violent attack without, stipulating that it's an allegation.
Yeah.
And so that's technically biased, but really it's accurate reporting in the sense that like Kamala Harris was condemning what she thought was a violent attack.
Right.
You're trying to be concise, but that's still technically biased. You're swaying the reader into believing, well, that's for sure a violent attack.
Yeah. This is what happened with it happened a lot in the Kyle Rittenhouse trial too, and all the media was out there saying that he was and again, maybe he is. This is not me saying that he is not these things, but they really pushed that he's like a white supremacist and to the point where like there was a lot of confusion that like there was a lot of people that thought he had shot black people.
Oh yeah, because it was at a BLM protest.
Yeah.
Like it was at a protest where there was a lot of BLM and stuff like that. It was obviously in support of Joshua Blake, all of that. So
yeah.
Another one that they used was in the Washington Post, and it talks about how Bernie Sanders was quoting, something about net worth of homes and, blah, blah, blah. And the Washington Post didn't really make any they didn't cite their source, if you will. They didn't really talk about like how did they determine this number, where did they get it, etc. So, it's unsubstantiated. Can you just say unsubstantiated for me so I can frickin' say it?
Unsubstantiated.
Yeah, thanks.
It took us both 2 tries.
So
that's okay though.
So
I'm all right with that.
The idea here is you have to give more information sometimes, and you have to position it properly. The third one was opinion statements presented as fact. So it's kind of misleading if you're talking about something in a way that you present as fact and it's not labeled an opinion piece. Correct. So in an opinion section of like the New York Times,
right,
it's known that this is all opinion. So unless you have an example or you really have like statistical data or some sort of, cited source to back it up, it's not fact and it's just opinion. So the example they give is Vox. An article, the EPA is lifting greenhouse gas limits on coal power plants. The latest proposal won't stop the steady decline of the coal industry. Well, okay, but why do you say that? Like, where's the steady decline? So
right.
This is another example of like, it's kind of a sub headline, but what do you have to back that claim up?
Yeah. Vox is one of my least favorite media outlets.
I really like Ezra Klein, the founder of Vox.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's a lot of there is some very good reporting by Vox. The problem is there's so much lean and there's so much they're not just left of center, they're very left. So like while I might agree with what they're saying, I can't use that in a discussion. I can't use that in an argument because it's just like the whole source itself is so far left leaning that it doesn't feel as journalistic as say like the New York Times or Wall Street Journal or PBR or whatever else you might. And then the next one we talked about sensationalism, right?
Yeah.
So this is something that.
Sorry, I was looking at Vox's position on the chart.
No, that's fine. And this is something even like the Associated Press, which is probably deemed the most factually
right.
reliable source. It's all of these like high-end journalists. Like there's very, very little perspective, but even then, sometimes they fall into the trap. So like they had this, article that had no reason necessarily to have any bias, but the first line is there will be plenty to gawk at Friday, and gawk means to stare at, in a stupid nature. So like the Associated Press is kind of bringing it into like this entertainment value that doesn't need to be there, so that can be biased.
This is like, to me, like this is like the biggest issue with like the Rachel Maddows and the who's another? Actually, the Young Turks would fall into this too.
Mm-hmm. There's a new Young Turk, Anna something. I actually really
Kasparian.
like her.
She's not. No, I don't like her.
Oh, I like her.
She said some really we can talk about this another time.
Okay.
But there's some things that she has said in the past,
like disparaging comments about someone.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, some not so nice things.
Oh, I just saw her debate someone.
Some factually inaccurate things. She's a very talented speaker.
Okay.
But yeah, she said some very mean things about some people in the past.
Oh, yeah, I've just seen her on TikToks lately.
Yeah. But that's neither here nor there.
Yeah.
See, this is why we make such a good team, Brian.
Yeah.
You always tell me when I'm wrong, and every once in a while, I recommend you do more research. This is just like my relationship with my wife. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, I just said I like her. I didn't say she was the most accurate.
Yeah.
Rachel Maddow is, for me, I think she's fine. I know what she is.
Yeah.
She's very sensational.
Yeah.
I don't like Ben Shapiro as much, but I understand his draw to some people. And
again, like you could look at TikToks of Ben Shapiro debating. You'd be like, well, he's a very masterful. He's a masterful debater.
Yeah.
Anyways.
I don't know why. Now I'm thinking of the conversation he had like about how WAP was a terrible song.
Oh, that's so stupid. That's what gets him in trouble. Like if he
gets in trouble because he says a lot of other stupid shit about the shit he actually should be talking about properly. Yeah, well, but then he has other things where he doesn't understand the whole thing, and he thinks a WAP has to do with like a yeast infection. And you're like, no, I don't know if you ever have. Yeah.
They actually the debate between him and Cenk Uygur, who's like the founder of the Young Turks. Which they need to change. Speaking of needing to change your
we talked about that.
Yeah, needing to change the name of something. I don't know. Did you disagree with me on that?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't.
Because we looked up the history of it. Here nor there. Yeah, they had a debate. Here. Ben Shapiro and who?
Cenk Uygur.
Oh yeah.
I think I may be butchering his last name, but I'm pretty sure it's Uygur.
Who cares?
Well, I mean, I do. I want to be factually accurate, my friend.
That's fair. I do like Hassan Abi, who was formerly on the Young Turks, but I don't like him. Like, he's not my news source. He's very, very like radical. Yeah. And like hilarious.
I've seen him before.
He's like
where
offensive.
Huh? Yeah, where is he now?
He just streams on Twitch.
Oh, does he really?
Yeah.
Okay.
He's just a streamer, and he like goes off, and it's his own stream. It's his own little production that he does, and it's very low budget production. It's literally him in a room.
Ruben, what's his first name?
Dave Rubin.
Dave Rubin. He used to be on the Young Turks.
Yeah, he went way off to the other side of things.
Yeah, which is funny. It's well, you know what?
Hassan and Dave Rubin actually used to speak together. But we need to get back on track because I just noticed the time. Holy shit.
And I also just almost got us into our next topic anyway. So.
Oh, yeah. So the idea of mudslinging.
Yeah.
Right? So mudslinging is the old term where, you were throwing out personal attacks, calling someone a snowflake or, they showed an episode of The Economist. Here, you can write on here.
No. I was knowing because I've called you a snowflake before.
Inside the mind of Ben Shapiro, the alt-right sage without the rage. And so calling him alt-right, alt-right is generally anti-Semitic, and Ben Shapiro is a Jewish man, so he has condemned certain aspects of the alt-right. Now, he has some overlapping principles that might be similar to the alt-right, but it's hard to call him alt-right when he is himself a Jewish man.
Right. It's like when people used to call him like a Nazi.
Yeah. Number 6 is mind reading, which I also talked about a little bit earlier. The idea that you can't presume someone's own mind. So like CNN Politics did a reporting, Donald Trump's hatred of looking foolish and Democrats' conviction that they have a winning hand is leaving the president with no way out of the stalemate over his border wall. To say that Donald Trump hates looking foolish, I think everyone hates looking foolish, but you can't use that in an article, right? You can't say that.
And this is a very important one, too. Like, it's very important to, because you can get into a lot of trouble with this, and this is where you start, or you fuel people's outrage.
Right.
You know what I mean? By pretending to know what's going on in someone else's mind or how they meant something, which is why I think long format and, interviews are the best because people actually have more time to...
Right.
Explain their point of views and why they feel a certain way and maybe be able to clarify things. That's why podcasts are the way of the future.
Yeah. The National Review did an article on Obama, and they said there's no passion behind these activities, no restless energy. So no managerial competence, no sense of purpose or mission or mission or strategy, none of the qualities associated with leadership in business, politics, or culture. And then, the question then becomes how do you know Obama wasn't, passionate about this thing, this particular thing? I think it had to deal with, him being on the golf course or whatever.
Yeah.
How do you know he's not still, carrying a sense of purpose, whatever?
Can I do the next one? Do you mind?
Slant. Go for it.
Only because I think this one is so important.
Sure, fire away.
I mean, all of these are very important. But what I think that people view as like biased media, I think that this is like the most prevalent, and this is where I think they see the most bias in news outlets. And it basically describes, it's like cherry picking the information. Okay,
I think this is what your Uncle Jim was referring to the most,
right?
When talking about bias, is the slant.
Yeah. But you're only telling part of the story, certain highlights. You're focusing on certain pieces of the information. You're not telling the whole story. You're basically trying to tell it from an angle that supports your point of view as a news outlet.
Yeah, and I think that's important. And they give a really good example of
Fox.
AOC. Yeah, Fox News saying, AOC has been portrayed as one of the leaders of the progressive wing in the Democratic Party. She, along with Sanders, has received intense criticism for policy proposals like the Green New Deal. But there's also a lot of people that were very supportive of those measures. So to say, they've received intense criticism, that could have been by, Mitch McConnell.
Yeah.
And only Mitch McConnell.
Yeah.
Yes, there was intense criticism, but if it's by a select few or even a majority, but there's also a huge grouping that does support it, you're not painting the whole picture. What you're painting is, hey, they're supporting something that is this ideology that's gathering no support anywhere because obviously it's being intensely criticized.
Yeah, and there's also a little bit of spin in that comment as well by calling it intense criticism, because I think that it's fair for like the Green New Deal to meet criticism as with any new bill. But was it intense, or was it just, where are we going to get this money from? Or whatever, anyways.
Yeah, and then the next one is flawed logic, which is jumping to conclusions. There's not enough evidence to really support the thesis of the article. You're kind of jumping to this conclusion and, making the assumption, which then makes the reader believe that that's the news. This assumption is actually true, but you don't have enough evidence to actually prove that. I'm going to start speeding up to.
That's okay. Bias by omission.
Yeah. So bias by omission. They're choosing not to cover certain aspects of a story or certain stories altogether. And this is, they talked a little bit about this with stories about Benghazi, hate crime statistics. This was a really good one.
Yeah.
The hate crime statistics actually went up in 2016 or from 2016 to 2017. And so, omitting this idea was something that was also really important to the overall news story.
Yeah. I like how it brings up Benghazi too.
Yeah.
It's funny and it's so true. It's you know what I mean? The issues of the right are always ignored by the right or never brought up by the right. And the issues of the left or the failures or whatever of the left are always brushed over.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting.
Gosh damn it, Hillary.
Number 10. Oh, it wasn't her fault.
Debatable.
Yeah. The Republican-led commission said that she wasn't at fault.
Yeah, well. Money can buy lots of things, Brian. And you know who really loves money? The Republicans.
There's some flawed logic here.
Is there?
Yeah, you don't have evidence to back that up.
Oh, yes, I do. Tax cuts much?
Oh, no. I'm saying the Hillary aspect. Yes, no, Republican, yes.
I said it could be.
It could be.
I said money can buy a lot of things. I didn't say what it could buy.
So the next one is omission of source attribution. So if you're going to make a claim, you generally need to back up. Now, one thing in journalism is protection of your sources. So if it's going to jeopardize their health, their safety, their freedom, whatever the case is, it is important to protect your sources. So there is a certain journalistic privilege where you're not going to give away all of your sources. Just the same, when the sources are pretty widely known, you need to cite those sources.
This happened relatively recently, and you and I covered part of the story, and I think it had to do with something about Donald Trump. and like they didn't release the person who wrote the article didn't release the sources, and I actually said that was one of my biggest issues, and you brought up this point, like sometimes it's a matter of life and limb,
right,
or reputation, but I do it's a slippery slope to walk on.
Yeah, so a really good example was the Epoch Times, and it says critics say that Montgomery blah 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 blah. Well, what critics actually said this? Like, to say critics, say who? And, I saw this a lot of times when Donald Trump spoke.
Yeah.
He was always like, well, you know what they say, or like all of the people, what people specifically, like, where are you getting this information?
When everybody finds the group of that, like, comprises they, I mean, we're going to learn where a lot of information came from.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's true.
Bias by story choice and placement, Brian.
So we're talking there about this used to be more prevalent in, actual print newspaper. So like in the Tribune, you'd fold it open and then you'd go, okay, page by page. If it's front page news, that's really important. You're saying this is the most important news.
Right.
But like if all of a sudden you felt, Donald Trump, you're supporting Donald Trump and you think he really made a misstep with this policy, and he had this big buffoonery, he was just an absolute moron in this particular segment. I'll use Biden. He made a really bad policy change, right? So Biden made this bad policy change, but you support Joe Biden. You're going to put that article all the way at the back in the the lower left corner, and no one's going to see it. So by placing it there, you're kind of trying to sway the reader from even seeing it. You're still printing it, so you're upholding, your journalistic principles, but your bias is showing by your placement of it. Similarly, we see this a lot with digital print as well. Where do they put the headlines?
Yeah.
Is it the frontline thing? So CNN is really, you can see their bias, like their headlines about certain things, and then you have to scroll down to see other things that they're not supporting.
Yeah.
And then finally, subjective qualifying adjectives. So to actually say something like a disturbing rise. So this is really cool. And I highly suggest, if you have any more interest in this, going to allsides.com or adfontismedia.com.
Or going to our Facebook and following the links.
Yes. Because they give some of the examples of the words. There's pictures of the articles.
Things that are in articles all the time.
Yes.
That you don't always pick up on.
Yeah, like they talk about a debunked theory, a critical bill. So to say the infrastructure bill was critical, do I feel it's critical? Absolutely. Does Kevin? Probably. But I can't assume that. I can't get into his mind right now.
Get out of my head.
But to say that in an article, you are now saying that, yes, this bill is important. Well, some people might not feel that way.
Right, yeah.
And as a news journalistic approach to the news, you need to leave those bias driven words out, those adjectives that might taint someone's view of a particular aspect. So those are like the 12 different views. I think it's really interesting to go through. The one thing I really liked about All Sides also, Kevin, was you can see certain articles from left, center, and right, and how they actually use the headline to drive the focus.
Yeah, it's a really well done article.
Yeah, so the U.S. to resume remain in Mexico policy for migrants. Just the concept as a whole is like, here's the concept from the left, which was the Associated Press. The Associated Press is actually very, very center, but this particular instance, they took a very left-leaning headline. And the headline was, U.S. will resume policy for asylum seekers to wait in Mexico. It wasn't just for asylum seekers. It was all people. So it was, it was a deal with Mexico to keep people there, but it wasn't just asylum seekers. But by saying that, you're kind of making it sound more of like a left-leaning argument. Whereas from the right, it says the Biden administration reaches deal with Mexico to re-implement Trump-era remain in Mexico policy. And this was from Fox News. Turns out the Biden administration is actually trying to strike this down. What happened was a Texas federal judge upheld it and wanted to reinstate it. So it got reinstated, and now all of a sudden it's back in play. But the Biden administration wasn't striking a deal to make this happen. And then the center, which was actually from the Hill, U.S. to restart Remain in Mexico program following court order. That's the actual dead center. Here it is.
All the best stuff comes from the center. Brian.
Well, actually,
all
sides brought this up because sometimes they actually omit things. You're going to find more omissions. If a center news outlet can still have bias, but it's just not shown because they're more likely to omit things. But generally speaking, it's easier to just kind of jump to that conclusion that the center is going to be probably the most reliable. But
the center is always going to be a good starting place, and then
absolutely
off of that you can base other.
And that's what this is all about.
What you want to do more research on.
That's what this is all about. Is like as Kevin talked about, the idea of media literacy. Like you gotta be able to define both sides and see both sides of the coin to really understand the whole value. So that's the 12 biases. Did you want to talk about anything else with media literacy?
I don't. I wanted to, but we're already at the hour mark.
Okay.
And I do want to make sure that we get to our other listener question.
Well, okay. Let's kind of wrap up the media bias then. After doing some research and stuff like that, how do you feel about media bias? What are some of your final hits?
I feel like the best thing about it, about doing this research, is I feel like now, and just to really quickly touch on media literacy, it's super important to be able to know what's important to read, what are good starting sources, but also knowing that one source is not the end all be all. It's very important to get your news from multiple sources. If you're sitting there, and you're only listening to CNN every day, or you're always listening to The Blaze every day, you're going to be very biased yourself and thusly more likely to believe one way or the other. And it's going to be bad for your growth as a human being politically and socially, I think.
I 100% agree. I think your determination, and I just wanted to make sure, with the center, it's not perfect, but I think you're right. It's definitely the best starting point. So if you're looking at sources from the center, you're talking about the Associated Press, you're talking about Axios, BBC.
Well, yeah, and if I may, I don't want to interrupt you. I just want to finish because I can finish my thought and then I'm done, and then the microphone's all yours, my friend. But you look at the ones that are in the center, okay? And I'm just going to do a real quick brush through. Yeah. Most importantly, the Christian Science Monitor. Thank God. It's my number one source. But no, AP, Axios, BBC, Newsweek, NPR,
Reuters,
the Wall Street Journal, Reuters.
The Hill. Your go-to is on there. That's exciting.
And I don't do a lot of the Hill anymore.
Because you have Crystal inside.
Yeah. I still watch a lot of the Hill's stuff. Yeah. I don't like the anchors as much now. I'm not as emotionally attached to them.
You really like that one. Remember when January 6th happened? You liked that one NPR anchor.
I did.
She was a little bit older.
No. That was PBS.
Was it PBS? Yeah, you're right. Yeah, PBS.
Oh, my girl.
Yeah.
And that dress.
Whew.
Oh, baby. I'm a little baby.
I didn't mean that.
But you look at those sources that I just said.
Yeah.
Now go watch your favorite media outlet. You on YouTube, whatever. And leave out CNN and Fox, all that. But watch your favorite thing on YouTube, or listen to a podcast. And listen to all of the sources that they're using. Yeah. It's always one of those sources.
Yeah. You know, as reported by the Associated Press, as reported by Reuters.
Oh, here's an Axios poll.
Yeah. So those are really good sources if you're trying to collect facts. Now, if you're trying to get a little more perspective, you want to go to a left or right leaning. Like if you lean a little right, or you want to go both. Like I do check out Wall Street Journal articles sometimes. It's a little bit more right leaning. Where am I? I'm on the left. I do like left-leaning. So I generally go to the New York Times, the Washington Post. I look at NPR, which is actually center, BBC, all of those things. And it's really just getting you're widening your outlets, right?
Brian really likes to go straight for Breitbart.
Oh, God. I would never suggest that. But if you think about it, it's like investing in your information, right? If you're investing your money into the stock market, what do they always tell you? Diversify. So the same thing with your information and your knowledge. You want to diversify the base of your knowledge. Where am I getting my information from?
Right.
So that's all you're doing by choosing multiple sources and being aware where those sources, are on the spectrum. You're going to be more diversified in your knowledge.
Agreed.
Okay. Now, I don't want to downplay Deb, but we are up against it in terms of time. But it's a really, really fruitful question, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So she reached out. Deb, once again, thanks for she's a new listener. She saw that post.
Super excited.
And she was
Welcome,
like,
Deb.
Yeah, she was like, "Hey, I can't believe you're doing this. I've always liked having conversations with you. I'm really excited." She listened to it. She's like, "Oh my God, you and Kevin have such a great dynamic. So we really appreciate it."
Yeah.
So I really want to handle this question delicately, and so I think as an overarching theme, the question kind of poses: how do I uphold my values when the group doesn't? So like, how do I stick to my guns thinking I should? Maybe you shouldn't be, holding certain values, but that's what you hold dear. And those are your opinions, your beliefs.
Right.
How do I hold those when the group is not? So if I'm going to Thanksgiving and my family is a bunch of, libs, how do I hold my conservative values, or vice versa? And, the way she presented it, and I thought was a really great question, is she herself really kind of sides more with liberal ideology. And she's a very devout Christian. And she lives, I believe, in the southern region of the United States. So as a southern
Way to keep
Christian,
it broad, Brian.
Yeah, as a southern Christian, how do I uphold some of these liberal ideals that, people in that area don't agree with?
Can I take this one on for a second?
Yeah, go for it.
Thanks, dog. Brian did such a great job of handling my Uncle Jim's. I want to touch on this a little bit. And actually, I kind of alluded to this earlier because I brought up Dave Rubin.
Yeah.
And it brings up a good point. Well, typically the right, the Republicans are very they're not always strong believers in like gay marriage, things like that. Even gay rights in some cases, depending on how far right you like to drive.
Right.
But Dave Rubin he converted to being liberal. He considers himself I think he uses like the term born again Republican.
Okay.
And he's a gay man, and he's married to a gentleman. You know what I mean? So he's legally wed to another man. Okay. So here's the same conundrum. You see the same thing with Milo Yiannopoulos. He's kind of a bad example because and I mean absolutely no offense to him, but he's a little cuckoo. Okay. I mean, well, we talked about this before. Yeah, he started what do they call it? A
cult?
No, it's like a conversion.
Gay conversion therapy.
Gay conversion therapy clinic in Florida. Yeah. Also, he tossed his wedding ring into the ocean or something like that, and now it's just his roommate, not his fiance. Or
someone watched Titanic one too many times.
He wanted to put it next to the heart. Well, you need to go a little bit further out in the ocean, my friend. But this is it's a very interesting question, and one that kind of it's intriguing because it kind of like goes into this whole idea of like you have to act the same as everybody else that you believe in, but you don't. So how do you manage being a Christian and a liberal? Well, easy. I mean, Christianity is about being good to one another and following the word of the Lord. Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, the Lord wants the best for everybody, does he not?
Yeah.
I mean, brush me up, and I'm not, and I apologize, Deb, I'm not a religious person.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Be good unto others.
Right. So,
and I think that's what progressivism is all about: being good unto others, and thinking about the greater good of man. Mm-hmm. So, it's hard. It's like when you're growing up and you have a group of friends and you want to fit in with that group of friends. It's not always easy to because like you believe different things than they believe. I think that you will find as life goes on. And Deb, I don't know how old you are. I'm a very old man myself.
She's in our age bracket.
Okay, yeah. Let me tell you. Let me drop some.
She doesn't look like it. I mean, we look way older than her.
That's what happens when you're a stay-at-home dad / bartender.
Yeah. Or a political commentator
/ amazing worker for a company that will not be named. That's you.
Oh, that's me. I wouldn't meant you.
No, it's you.
No.
Everybody knows where I work.
Oh, that's true. That's true.
but it's like it's important to stay true to who you are. And it's the old adage of you can be vegan and not say anything about it. And I say that in a jocular manner because, you know, as a service industry worker, the one comment I get the most, especially at the restaurant I work at, is, "Oh, I'm vegan." And like, "Oh, is, you know," and it's not just like dietary restriction vegan, like I'm trying to not do this, and this, but like having to let it be known and then like pushing your ideals.
Yeah. Well, and it's weird because in the restaurant you work with, it literally says if it's vegan friendly or not.
Yeah.
So like it's weird.
But like having to like tell the whole world.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think, Deb, in this scenario, you just keep being you.
Yeah.
And you know, it doesn't have to come up. It's always good to have political conversations, and I'm sure that as you continue to have them, perhaps your Christian community will maybe notice that you lean a slightly different way than them. But I don't think that you have anything to worry about.
No, and here's what
I just turned that into a major therapy session. I'm sorry, Deb.
No. I think there's great value to that, and I'll say this: number one, make sure you're educated. Like, is this a good value? Is this a good opinion to have?
Yeah.
And you know, sometimes we form opinions because we were raised a certain way, but have you done the self-discovery one way or another? And I would say yes, you have. You're you know, a well-educated person. I believe that. But anyone should always be questioning their own opinions. I do that all the time. And so it's a healthy measure to question anything, whether it's your political opinion, your religious beliefs, whatever. If you aren't questioning it, it means you're scared of something. So when people are like, "Oh, you can't question my God," well, why? If you're so strong in your beliefs, you should be able to take on those questions.
That's a great point.
When you don't have an answer, you're not shy about that, and you're like, "Well, I don't have an answer." That's where faith comes in, or whatever the case is. But you know, about political opinions, you know, you need to be well educated. Number one. Number two, I think Kevin said it, and I know I say it all the time. It's basically my mantra is have the conversation. And by having the conversation, not only will they know where you lean, they'll also be exposed to your beliefs, and perhaps that's what you're kind of supposed to be doing here, is exposing people to other things outside their beliefs. You might have been, you know, raised in a certain style of community, you know, not you necessarily, but a lot of people in like Christian or Islamic or whatever religious backgrounds, they're raised to believe certain things, and they never are exposed to beliefs outside there where they can be like, "Hey, I can be a Christian and also really support gay marriage. Like, I can do these things." And by having those conversations, you're exposing people to those beliefs. And the last thing I would say,
kind of think of yourself as like a Hercules Mulligan.
Okay.
The American spy that infiltrated British forces.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I watched Hamilton.
Oh, I know, baby.
You know, that guy was also on Grey's Anatomy after.
Really?
Yeah, Hercules. I mean, not the character, the actor that portrayed Hercules in the Disney, like the original rendition of Hamilton.
Yeah.
He was on Grey's Anatomy for like 5 or 6 episodes.
Nice.
Yeah, he was good. The last thing I would say is this, and I think I mentioned this a little bit when you asked this question, because I felt it was important to not only, you know, bring it up in the podcast, but really talk to you about it. But the idea that, if I may say so myself, Jesus was the ultimate liberal, right? Feed the hungry, shelter the homeless, take care of the poor, you know, turn the other cheek when something's done to you. All of these things are very borderline socialist, but certainly very liberal, very progressive, you know, accept everyone. You know, you're not the judge, God's the judge, all of these different things. So, you know, I did do a lot of Catholicism and Christian, you know, Christian studies throughout my life. And, you know, my beliefs have since shifted, but I think that's something that should still remain true for anyone, whether they're religious or not, is like some of those teachings.
Hold on, Brian.
Oh, what's up? On the YouTube, you now know that we're paused.
Yeah. No, we had a disk overload. It's probably because I have too many things running. Let me see what happens here. We're doing a quick playback. Sorry for everybody listening on YouTube. You're going to hear playback. Or maybe you won't. That was bizarre.
Yeah, what happened here? It doesn't look. Is that my normal tone?
I'm zoomed out on it.
Oh.
Like I can zoom in on this and you can see like it looks, you know what I mean? Or zoom
Oh,
out even
okay.
further.
That looks normal.
Yeah. The more you zoom one way or the other, if I zoom in really far, it looks like we didn't even talk.
But that was like within 2 seconds.
Yeah.
Got it. You know, Christians.
And that's where we left it. Christians.
Yeah, can you play back just a second more?
Yeah, of course.
Not the judge, God's the judge. All of these different things. So, you know, I did do a lot of Catholicism and Christian, you know, Christian
Studies. Let me give this episode a quick save here.
Oh, and just overwrite it after?
Yeah, no, I'm going to go right back to it. Just give me 1 second. I just want to make sure that I saved the episode. 139.
Cool.
Okay. We're going to do a test audio recording, but go ahead and just cut when I give you the signal. Go ahead and come in.
Yeah.
You know where you're at?
Yeah.
Brian's Garage Studios.
America.
All right, ready?
Studies that, you know, I spent my life, you know, reading the Bible and stuff like that. And so I would say this, you know, you're evoking a lot of the same messaging, and perhaps some of those people in the community are not really following the word of Christ. You know, it's not necessarily political, you know, following that word, but it should bleed over into some of your politics. And I know plenty of people who are Christian that even listen to this podcast who are very liberal. And so you standing out is not necessarily something within Christianity. It might just be something more geopolitical, or your geographic status more than your religious status. So number one, just make sure you're well informed and you've really thought about this opinion. Number two, stick to your guns. If you've educated yourself and you really believe something, you have a conviction to it, stand your ground and really look to expose people to your belief, whether it's your religious or politics.
And if you need help, just call us and we will be there.
Yeah, you know what? Just give them the link to the Spotify for this podcast.
Yeah, we got your back.
They'll learn. No, but and then finally, you know, to be honest, if I was to think about it, I think by being liberal, you're trending more towards what Jesus was like.
Yeah.
And in Christianity, the whole idea, as Kevin said, is to follow that path.
Yeah. He gave everything.
Yeah.
For everyone else.
Yeah. He didn't amass wealth. You know, he threw the tables over at the tax collectors, right? So, you know, all of this stuff, you know, kind of had a liberal ideology, and whether or not Christianity is down that path now doesn't matter. If you are, that is your conviction, your belief, similar to your belief in religion. So hold on to those and always continue to examine them.
You know my biggest gripe with Jesus?
Gripe or grape?
Gripe.
Oh, gripe. Because I know he turned water into wine.
Yeah, well, that's my biggest gripe. Why didn't he turn it into whiskey?
Because he had grapes.
He didn't want to wait for it to age. That's it. That's it. Got your back, Jesus.
So Deb, you know,
I say that jocularly, Deb. I'm not.
Deb, I really appreciate the question, and I hope that gives you a little bit more insight. You know, just make sure you're well educated. You on any topic that you really hold a conviction for, have that conversation, and expose other people to your beliefs. Maybe they just have never considered it, and when they do some research and they think about it and they reflect, and you know, have some moments of introspection, maybe they actually agree with you more than you realize. And then finally, you're kind of walking the path that you religiously support. So go onward.
Boom, roasted.
On that note, I think that's all I got, Kev. You know, Jim, I hope you really got something out of the media bias, or at least, you know, I know you know a lot about media bias and stuff like that, but I know you wanted us to expose the community to that, and talk a little bit about it. I do think it's definitely can be an issue. I think sometimes people overblow it. Sometimes people don't give, you know, enough credence to it, but there's a lot there. Yeah. And so it's really important to expose yourself to multiple outlets.
And to all of our other listeners too. I mean, we're just, you know, we love hearing what you guys, you know, want to hear us talk about. You know, knowing your concerns is important to us, and we're always here to explain things or do some research for you and give our take on it. So
on that note, do good, be great.
Love you guys. I just had a burp.
So now does that just save over it?
No, I'm not saving over anything.
No, I mean like you're writing a paper, you hit save, and then you just save it again. You didn't have to save a whole nother file, right?
No.
Okay.
No, I was just saving the original file.
Okay, cool. It's like I know you got a couple terabytes over there, but it'll go real quick if you just keep saving the same ones.
No, I always do the same. Well, I mean, I use up more of the actual data storage because I have to convert things from the GarageBand audio file, to an actual like MP3 file. So I have to have it stored as both on my computer. I can delete out the original and just have the MP3. But I like to have both. So I'm basically doubling the storage just by doing that. Or doubling the usage, I should say, just by doing that.
Oh, this is cool.
What's that?
Cooking with Duke? Be teaching a cooking class this Saturday?
Oh, I wish I could do it.
The East Dundee Library?
That's cool.
Oh, it's not Saturday, it's Thursday. You still couldn't do it, though.
No. I wish I could. Were you there when he... Yeah, you were there when he showed up. He stayed for a while.
Did he?
Yeah.
Well, I know he was like, when you guys open, I'm like, oh, he's staying if it's anywhere near, and it is.
Yeah. No, he didn't end up staying, but...
Oh, he didn't stay?
He didn't.
Oh.
No, they left after a while. Alright. Boom. Save.
Fuck me.
Not on air.
Oh, we're still on YouTube?
Yeah.
No, I was looking at my day tomorrow.
Oh, jeez. Oh, we still have one viewer. I wonder if it's your wife.
Yeah, maybe. Well, how did you feel? I wish we would have more time. It like flew by.
Yeah, it reminded me of the not that like I feel like the episodes have been dragging, but like it reminded me of like when we first started, and it's like how like when I was really nervous in the beginning, like shit, we're gonna talk for 15 minutes and run out of shit.
Oh, really? You thought that coming in?
I did. I was nervous. I was like, okay, are we gonna make the time marks for like what we need to do?
Dude, I figured and then it was
after
long, but
after the first episode, I was like, oh shit, 45 minutes is not enough.
Oh yeah. No, I definitely felt like we got into the coverage of like what media bias is, media literacy. I think it would have been, and I think by utilizing all sides where they actually have instances, Business Insider, New York Times, Fox News, all these different examples, and reading those examples show exactly what it is. But it was just like we had to go through so much in so little time. We didn't really get to deep dive in like how we feel about it, because like I personally feel that the quote unquote mainstream media gets a lot of bad rep.
Yeah, I think sometimes it deserves it, sometimes it doesn't.
Absolutely. So I didn't get to express that as much because there was just so much to go through.
Oh, it's a lot.
Especially because I think all 12 of those things are important to go through. You can't just like cut some of it out. But yeah, I thought it was really good, and I think it's really beneficial. This is going to be one of those like, oh, they're going to learn a lot, but it might not be as engaging as like sometimes when you poke me and I go on a fucking terrible rant.
These are the kind of episodes I actually like to like. This is an episode that I would like to listen to.
Oh yeah,
I like my information sources to be like, a little bit of fun now and then is good, but like I kind of like it to just be like meat and potatoes.
Yeah. This is a very meat and potatoes,
and I like that.
Yeah, a lot of steak, not as much sizzle.
Yeah,
but I think the end was also really beneficial too. I think that added the sizzle that it was a nice little human feel to it.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to sign us off here, Brian.
Okay,
because
cool.
I just got a text from my wife, and my youngest is still awake.
All right.